not really wanna act out, but you just really caught my eye. If you want it, you can back out, but I can show you a good time. So just tell me if you want me now. Let me have you for the night. I'm not trying to make you mine. Show me where to draw the line, cause I'm not one for feels. Shit's too real, I'm not looking for it.
What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and we are back this week with another tutorial. And for this week, we're doing something that you guys have requested so much, and I mean so much. So this week, we're going to be going over how to make a disco pop or a funk pop song similar to artists like Charlie Puth, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat songs, Say So, DNCE, basically that really rhythmic pop that's got really nice kind of extended chord progressions, nice driving drums, a really groovy bass line, and some nice guitar to fill it out. So we're going to be going over the full arrangement, including vocal production today. So if you guys like this video, let us know. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton, and let us know what kind of videos you guys want to see next. Before we actually hop in, I do have a couple of really important announcements, and one of the main ones is that our entire site right now is 25% off, and yes, that's every single item we sell. You don't even have to put in a coupon code. Just go to makepopmusic.com and you'll see the new prices reflected. Everything is 25% off from today, March 20th, all the way up until next Sunday, March 29th. And we've even made our Ultimate Bundle 50% off. So the Ultimate Bundle that has everything we've ever offered, normally $700, which is still a value because it should be priced at like $1,400 or $1,500, is actually going to be cut down to $350. So save 50% on that, 25% on everything else. And we've got one more goodie for those who are going to go support the sale. This video is disco and funk pop, so we figured why not give you guys something to actually go along with that. If you spend $45 or more during the sale period, you are going to get our brand new Disco Pop pack for free, and that's 120 samples and presets. We're going to have Anna 2 presets and Serum presets, and then we've got kicks, snares, claps, snaps, cymbals, all kinds of percussive stuff. So it's a really fire sample pack that I think you guys will love if you love this video, and the only way to get that is if you go over $45 in your cart. It'll be added automatically for free. So definitely go over to makepopmusic.com, check out the sale, help support us. We really appreciate it. The more support we get on that, the more we can do this stuff for free for you guys. So go check it out. Let us know what you think. Other than that, let's actually hop into Cubase so we can go over this stuff, because this is going to be quite a bit to talk about. It's a simple project, but there's a lot of details in this one. All right, now we're in the session. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the first thing you're going to want to do for a song in this style. So the first thing that I think is essential is definitely getting that pattern that's going to be in almost all of these style songs, which is that either like 4 on the floor kick or that, 1-2 kick and snare kind of combo. So for this, we have 2 different kicks. We have, looks like disco kick 10 right here. And then we've got a little clicky one right here. And it looks like this is, I believe this is disco kick 11. Oh no, this is actually the funky kick 9 from our funk pop pack. So basically what I've done is I've taken out all the low end here because I like the mid and the roominess of this one. But I like the punch and the click of the first one. So we've got that 4 on the floor kick, and now we're gonna go ahead and add in some snares. These are just a couple of our other snares from different packs kind of layered together. Not really doing much process, just kind of putting on a little bit of short reverb, and then we've also got a little bit of EQ where we're scooping some of the mids to kind of deaden it a little bit and boosting some of that 220 and some of that 3K with a high shelf just to give it some punch and some air, and then scooping those mids will really help kind of tighten it up. So here's what it sounds like by itself with no processing. So I just really wanted to add in that kind of like dead punch that I think is really essential for this genre. So we've got just the kick and the snare. And you'll see right here that on the kick, I'm going pretty full velocity every time. So it's not like the song that we've done before where I kind of alternate hard, soft, hard, soft. We're just going 4 on the floor, full velocity the entire time. So that's easy enough. I know all of you following along can definitely do that if you do cop the Disco Pop pack in the sale. Almost any of those samples will work for this. So now that we've got that, the next thing that I wanted to do was, of course, you have to find a good bass line. And for that, I am using Rickenbacker from NI. So it's a good bass. It's nothing super crazy, and I know a lot of you probably have it, so I went ahead and used it for this. And I've got this on the Tweedman setting because that does give you some of those like really thick mids, and it gives you some of that grind. And so basically I just kind of played around You'll notice that in this disco pop genre a lot, you're gonna see little octave pops, so like, those are really gonna happen in almost every song that you'll ever hear like this. It happens in Attention, it happens in Say So, it happens in Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa. It happens in almost every DNCE song ever, and that's just gonna give it some movement, and a lot of the time those are getting slapped. This bass I don't believe has a slap setting, so right now I just played it as is. So you might think, hey, that sounds cool. It honestly sounds fine. Like, you could leave it as that, which I definitely agree. But to me, leaving it as that kind of has more of like this indie pop vibe where we're kind of going for more of like a disco funk vibe. I really do feel like the slap bass is a necessity. So that's why we're gonna go ahead and layer over this slap bass right here. And this is from Hellion Sonic. Let me take all of the effects off of this so you can kind of hear exactly what we're doing. And as its own little thing, it sounds like this straight out of the box. And you can see right here in the MIDI, we've definitely made sure that we kind of humanize this. So like when you're getting those double plucks or those slaps are gonna be at 127, everything else is gonna be a little bit lower. And especially when we're coming in with those little accent plucks, those are gonna be a lot lower. Just because we don't want it all at 100. It sounds kind of goofy like that. Sounds a little bit better when you give it a little bit of movement. So that's what it sounds like straight up. Then we went ahead and threw on Guitar Rig. And I actually threw on the precise bottom because this had pretty much no low end, which we don't use a lot of the low end in the final anyway. However, I still wanted it there so I could scoop it out if need be. And it makes that slap a little less abrasive and kind of helps it sit in the mix a little bit better. Where on its own, it was just kind of like really, really, really hard and abrasive and aggressive. Where right now it kind of sits a little bit better. Then we threw on max bass just to give it a little bit more low end, which I don't think I ended up using actually because we ended up just using this as a layer. I originally had this as the main bass and I realized it just wasn't giving me the mid definition like the Rickenbacker bass was. So that's why you'll see that we layer them up in a second. So I'm scooping a lot of mids, like 20 dB and quite a bit of 250, like 5 dB. And then on here, 7 dB of 1K and scooping out almost all of the low end. So let's go ahead and activate that. And I'm really just using that as a layer to augment that kind of first initial electric bass. And you might be thinking, that sounds cool, but those are not really blending that well. I would definitely agree, and that's why I came in with this third layer right here. It's the wah bass. So that's the same slap bass that we just used before, but what we're doing on this is we're automating a wah-wah pedal. So I'll kind of show you what we're doing with that. So this is giving us some more of those mids from that slap bass, and I'm using a wide stereo bass preset, so we're actually spreading that and getting some width in that bass. And then I've got Camel Crusher just giving it a little bit of extra compression. So now that with a slap bass, with the electric bass, creates one big kind of wall of sound for that little slappy plucky bass. And that's really the whole basis of most of the song. So all of these songs, really, you could just kind of revert back to that, like you'll see right here in the verse. We build it up with some synths, and then we do just go to that for like 8 bars.
I'm not really one to act out, but you just really caught my eye.
So that can definitely act as its own thing. The next thing I wanted to do was start playing around with some synths just to add in some extra layers and some extra vibe. So that's where I went in and I grabbed this Lush Vibes. It's in the Disco Pop pack. It's this chord preset, and it's kind of like a Juno We Saw kind of preset. And I am playing the chords of the initial root notes, typically with a 7th, just to kind of give them that extra little vibe, just to make them a little bit jazzy, a little bit funky, so they're not so standard. So that kind of layered over with the bass sounds really nice. So the verse initially starts pretty low-key and vibey, and then as the verse keeps going through the pre-chorus, we rise up right here, and then you see it really die down. and then we have it come in full speed in the chorus. So that's a really good way to only use one element, but kind of make that element dynamically work for you, is definitely play around with your filters. I love filtering stuff out in the verses, and then kind of raising that way. It can still have the movement and the dynamics without having to layer up a bunch of stuff, especially in songs like this where the arrangement is gonna stay pretty minimal. So we've got that as the main key sound, then we've got these little kind of Rhodes right here, and there's not much post-processing going on, and these are actually in Anna 2. So this is going to be one of the presets in there called Romantic Vibes, and it's kind of just like this little Rhodes sound. I'll kind of show you right here. So it's nice because you get that kind of like bright bell sound of a Rhodes, and then it's got that sustain of something more just like a sign pad where it's kind of like not taking up too much space, but it really is thickening that mix. And it kind of adds a nice little bit of sheen where the first retro soft preset is kind of filtered out. This still gives it some brightness and some kind of punch. So with the kicks and the snare and the bass, now we've got this. The next thing that I went ahead and added was I added this little electronic bass right here from Serum, and I filtered out all of the low end. It's just the wide jumping bass from the disco pack. And basically what this is going to do is add a little bit of extra width and just some consistency to that little slap bass that we've had going. So this kind of genre is all about adding stuff like that to thicken it up and kind of create that wall of sound without adding too many elements that are going to clash over each other, because this is a very kind of melodic and groovy song, and if you start adding a bunch of melodies in, it gets really messy really quick. The other synth, pretty much the only synth we have until the chorus, is this kind of shimmery ARP that I actually got from Omnisphere and I printed so I could automate it, and this is basically just kind of rising up through the verses and through the intro. I actually made it specifically for the intro, and then you ended up using it in the verses and the chorus as its own kind of natural riser. I've noticed that those kind of like dreamy bell kind of arpeggiated sounds happen a lot in this genre, and I think that it kind of creates a nice little atmospheric backbone without having something that's super melodic, and without having something that's just kind of stagnant and just feels like a pad that's kind of being risen. So definitely try to do something like that to add a little bit of movement without adding a lot of melody. Other than that, we're on to basically just the guitars right now. We've added some extra drums, which I'll highlight in just 1 second. So you can hear we've got that shimmery ARP kind of rising. The next thing we did was we added these guitars, and it's double tracked, tracked once for the left, tracked once for the right. I just use Andy in a bottle as a starting point and then just kind of tweak some stuff. I think I tweaked the amp settings right here, and then I may have tweaked the reverb and the cabinet. I may not have. I don't really quite remember, but I just wanted something that kind of had that chorusy, phasey effect, but wasn't super intelligible. So like I wanted it to still act as a guitar and just have a little bit of that depth that you might get from that. So we've got that in the intro right here. And then we bring it back in when the verse, when all of the synths come in. Then I've got this one guitar right here in the middle, and this is kind of like this little wah-wah guitar that I've added. It's just a setting in Guitar Rig called Auto Wah, and it kind of does this. So it's almost acting as a little percussive element because it sounds really nice with the drums. And that's all the guitar going on at the moment. Then we're going to pull in these extra little guitars that are the wah effect again, and then I threw on some H delay. These are funky auto wah as well, and these are tracked twice, once for the left, once for the right. If you ever see left and right, I definitely double tracked it. It's not just copied and pasted on vocals, on guitar, on anything. So I'm just adding that to give it a nice little backbeat because I've pulled in these synths. I've pulled in these basses, and now I'm pulling in extra percussion. So this is what I'll go ahead and talk about next. The next thing I did where I would normally add hi-hats in a verse is I actually added a tambourine and a shaker. These are both from our tambo and shaker packs from the Essentials. Really, really love these just for adding some extra like kind of groove in there to give it some human life. So I've got that with the kicks and the snares, and I've added this little electric ride kind of on the backbeat. Then I can go ahead and I can talk about some of the extra little percussive hits we've got. I've got a little ah hit right here when the synths start to come in. When everything comes in, I've got this little cymbal hit right here. So we've got this. Then we've got a cymbal hit right here. And then I've just got some stuff happening in the verses right here. Like I've got this little Vox hit from our Funk Pop pack. And that is just tuned down quite a bit and then crushed with Camel Crusher and has like this H delay kind of slap on it. So I actually tuned it up 11. Here's what it sounds like normal. And then I just took it up here. Set that to 1/4. I think that got dragged down on accident. And then we've just got one more synth hit back here that we didn't really talk about. This is also a little vocal stutter. Kind of stole that from like John Bellion. He does that kind of stuff a lot, and he's definitely worked in the style quite a bit. So now we've pretty much covered everything. The only thing I think we didn't talk about was this kind of bass in the intro. And this is just being risen up with a ladder filter. It's just a slappy moog. And you can hear the filters doing some work there. This song had a lot of filtering and a lot of movement with the filtering. So now we've pretty much worked our way up through the entire verse. It's a really simple arrangement, and then it doesn't get too much more difficult in the actual chorus. So we'll talk about the drums in the chorus. Of course, we've got the kicks and the snares. We've gone ahead and layered over another snare. So we've layered over this kind of lower thumpy snare. So that's doing a little bit of work. We've still got that ride-in happening on the backbeat. And then we've also added in these claps right now, just to give it another human element, so not everything feels so drum machine-y. We've got a little fill right here that's actually something from our Sounds of Life pack, and then a clap. And then we've just got a kick and snare kind of over that to give it a little ba-boom-ba. So that's the snare that'll go into the chorus. And then we've just got this big ah down hit again. And then we've got the same tambourines and shakers. The same electric crash. So far everything except the clap is the same as the verse. This is where we started adding something different. So this is actually a hi-hat loop from our hi-hats pack. And this one had a nice little bit of movement, and it was actually played by a human. So it has a little bit of that human characteristic. And then we just have a couple little down hits, like a shaving cream down hit and a dry shampoo down hit from the Sounds of Life pack, just to give us a little bit of that like laser sound. So with all of the drums together, this is really the driving force of the entire song. Next we'll go to bass, and then I'll show you the guitars and the synths to kind of fill it out. And that's pretty much it for the drums there. I forgot to mention this pre-chorus is really doing nothing. It's the same exact things looped over. I'm just filtering the synths down, and then I took the drums out. So it's that bass from the intro, and then take the drums out just so we can have a little bit of sustain since everything's been kind of so pumpy and jumpy lately. So now we've got the drums for the chorus. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the bass. It's all of the same layers, but I did change the bass line to be a little bit busier so we have a little bit more groove. So So that's where we're getting a lot of that groove from the hook, and that's where we're really getting the difference between the hook and the verse, is like if I kept the same bass line, it didn't feel like it was really going anywhere. It just felt like the same thing had a couple extra layers over. It felt almost more like a second verse. So I definitely wanted to change that bass line, and then I also changed the lead guitar. So pretty much the same settings from before. We did drive the drive up though, and we added like a tube saturation. Then we still have the wahs, the wah little scratches, and the wah kind of backbeat, wanga wanga. Those are still in there. And then we've got the synths. We've got the same retro saws from before, but the filter is completely open now, so we're getting a lot of that buzz. We've got the same Rhodes. We've got that same shimmery ARP that's going to rise through the entire chorus. We've got that same vocal hit that's going to be a nice little down hit. But now we've added these two things. So this actually was just one layer that was going right up the middle. However, I decided to split it off because I wanted a little bit of extra stereo width, and with the vocals in there, it was getting a little crowded in the middle. So I actually have this little guy right here. It's kind of the old Rhodes. And you can hear it's got some of that detuning where it sounds a little bit analog. We've got kickstart on it. Here's it without that. And then I actually copied that layer, and this is a good tip if you're using Serum. I'll copy the layer exactly, and then I'll change the oscillator and I'll change the noise so they won't kind of cross over and phase out, and then I'll pan it completely to the other side. So now we've got a second layer that is almost identical, but not so identical that it'll phase. We'll turn the left side down just a little bit. And then I've got this little lead in here that's barely tucked in the background. It just adds a nice little buzz. And this is also in Serum. This is the vintage slideshow. So now that's everything for the entire song. So we've got the drums, those synths, these guitars, and this bass. So really there's only the drums happening, and then all of these little extended chords are doing the exact same thing. So that's 2 elements. We've got this lead, that's 3 elements. We've got the ARP, that's 4 elements. We've got this guitar, that's 5 elements. And then we've got these, I'm gonna count as 1 element, 6 elements. And then all this bass, 7 elements. So 7 elements plus a vocal, and that is plenty to fill this song up. So here it is with no vocals whatsoever. So now let's go ahead and add the vocals in, and I'll kind of show you guys what I did to process those. Again, as always, these are just kind of scratch vocals for the sake of the tutorial. So we process them pretty much the same as always with, you know, auto-tune, some compression, some EQ, some de-essing, and everything here is the same except for this vocal parallel compression, which I've never really used on the channel, I don't think. So I'll show you what the vocal sounds like without that, and then I'll go in and I'll show you exactly what that's doing. So here it is, natural.
I'm not really one to act out, but you just really caught my eye. If you want it, you can back out, but I can show you with your time.
So I've got this extra parallel compression that basically has, let's go to it so I can show you exactly what's on it. We've got mono to stereo to widen the vocal. We've got decapitator to crush the vocal, and that is doing a lot of work. I mean, we're crushing the shit out of it. Then we're EQing it out, so we're really only going to get those mids. Then we're going to add a double to spread it out a little bit more. Then we're going to give it a slapback delay to give it a little bit of vibe. So it's basically a really wide, crushed, slappy vocal, and we're going to mix that in to taste. So this is where I kind of ended up just in the rough mix.
I'm not really one to act out, but you just really caught my eye. If you want it, you can back out, but I can show you with your time. So just tell me if you want me now. Let me have you for the night.
So really, depending on how much you want, you could drive that as hard as you want. I actually kind of like it driven a little bit more than I initially had it, just to give it some vibe, especially since we've kind of EQ'd out all of the low muddiness and all of the really high brittle sounds. So we've got that as the lead vocal throughout. That's happening the entire song. We've got these little eighth to late throws that is basically the same vocal chain with an 1/8 delay, 100% wet, doubler, so it's a wide vocal that's getting delayed without ping-ponging. And then we've got a really, really big reverb on it, pretty wet. And again, we're gonna filter that out so it's not super messy. So we've got...
I'm not really one to act out, but you just really caught my eye. If you want it, you can back.
Because I definitely wanted a drier vocal for most of this. I wanted just kind of like a slappy short vocal. I didn't want a lot of room because then it doesn't feel the same. Then it kind of just feels like a normal pop song, or even kind of feels like it's like diving into the indie pop realm. So I wanted everything super short, super aggressive, and then I have those delay throws right there to augment. Then I have some layers coming in for the second half of the verse, where I've got the lead tracked again for the left and tracked again for the right, same melody, and then I've got a harmony that is an octave up. So here's what it sounds like with all of that.
Show me where to draw the line, cause I'm not one for feels. Shit's too real. I'm not looking for another heart to steal tonight. This can be a little game. Don't know names. Tell me if you really think.
So what we do is we have all of those right here, and then I've got this little kind of delay throw that's just a low kind of saturated weird monster vocal.
This can be a little heart to steal tonight.
Then I'm going to take away the left and the right of the main melody just because I didn't want it so full where the song actually dies down. I just wanted that lead up the middle, and then I have the octave harmonies on the left and the right. And then I have this reverb right here where it's 100% wet and filtered out, just kind of blended in.
No names, tell me if you really think you feel the same, don't lie. So baby, when the sun comes, you'll be just another ghost, and I'll get up and run, and I won't leave a little note, baby, know that.
So again, taking out those left and the rights to kind of give it a little bit of dynamic where it starts minimal, goes decently big, comes back to pretty small, and then we come back in with a really, really big vocal. So in the chorus, we've got the lead up the middle, the lead melody on the left, the lead melody on the right, we've got a harmony on the left, we've got a harmony on the right, and then we've got these second harmonies on certain accents and phrases. Then we've got the reverb vocal over the whole thing, and then the delay throws on the end of phrases. So the lead right here is actually the higher falsetto.
So baby, when the sun comes, you'll be just another ghost, and I'll get up and run, and I'll...
So what I did for these harmonies is it's actually an octave lower.
When the sun comes, you'll be just another ghost, and I'll get up and run, and I won't leave a little note, babe.
Then I added these extra little harmonies right here on just the first areas of phrases.
When the sun comes, you're just another ghost, and I'll get up and run, and I won't leave a little note, baby, know I have fun, and if you really wanna know, just know.
And then I just have that reverb in there to kind of help it, because here's what it sounds like without the reverb or the delay. It's a little dry and a little awkward.
When the sun comes, you'll be just another ghost, and I'll get up and run, and I won't leave a little note, baby, know I have fun, and if you really wanna know, just know I had to know, because I think you're the one.
Then we just filter it back out. Then you can write a second verse, copy and paste the chorus, kind of do whatever you need to do, but that is pretty much all that goes in. So just to kind of recap in order of importance. Really driving kick and snare, the boom, pa, boom, really, really key with really good fat dry drum samples. Next, you're gonna want a really nice swimming kind of groovy bass line to go over top of that. Then you're gonna wanna fill that out with some synths that are maybe doing extended chords. Then you're gonna want some guitar to kind of add in a nice little counter melody to that bass where it's plucked, it's nice, it's clean, it's wide, it's got a little bit of effect on there just for some taste, and then you can just throw in your risers and effects. For the vocals, you could go with something super poppy like this, you could go with something a little bit more kind of minimal and disco, you could do something a little bit longer. This is just more of my style, so I wanted to throw that in just so you would have it as a reference, especially for vocal processing. And then when you get to that vocal, you can really choose, do you want it really clean? Do you want it really distorted? Do you want it kind of in the middle like we have it here? How thick do you want it? Do you want to layer up a bunch of stuff? So it's a really, really simple genre, but there are a lot of things that you can do to add your own flavor and your own spin. So definitely take this in mind when you're making this. And if you're only using, 9 or 10 tracks and it's sounding a little empty, but it's everything that you want, focus on layering, focus on creating that wall of sound, focus on everything having its own place instead of giving everything a different melody or a different vibe. Sometimes it's just having a lot more of the same thing to really create the difference between something that sounds thick and full and something that sounds just kind of empty and mediocre. So hopefully this helped. So as you can see, there's not much that really goes into making this disco pop or funk pop sound. It's really just about having really good driving drums and having really fat, dry samples, and then having a really solid bass line that you can kind of augment with those extended chords. That's going to give you that jazzy feeling, that's going to give you that groovy feeling, and that's going to give you that pocket that you're looking for in this genre so much. So hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, like I said before, like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out a ton. If you want to support, head over to MakePopMusic.com and check out our sale. 25% off everything, 50% off the Ultimate Bundle, and the free Disco Pop Pack if you spend over $45 or more. Other than that, we will be back next week with more videos. Let us know what you want to see in the comments below, and we will be back with that. Other than that, stay safe, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Much love, and peace out.
I'm not really one to act out, but you just really caught my eye. If you want it, you could back out.